What a mess. What a mess. The correct outcome in the most shambolic manner is where we are. I think that's all that can be said. I made a video earlier where I said I want to be positive about rugby. I want to talk about all the action on the field and the great players and tries and stuff. And here we are again talking about off-field stuff. It needs to be talked about though, doesn't it? So thank you very much for watching. I'm Tim. Get stuck in the comments. Tell me what you think. World Rugby have announced that they are going to appeal and retry Owen Farrell, questioning the overturning of his red card to yellow card sufficient after his after the weekend and after the panel earlier this week and all of the uproar that caused. There we are. As I say, right outcome, awful shambolic process, and I think that's the overwhelming feeling I have out of this. There is no part of this which is not a giant steaming turd. Is there? Sorry about the wind. Hopefully this windshield is protecting it. I think the weather today has turned a little bit like it must be in the England camp. It's bleak, and it looks even more bleak out there, doesn't it? Again, that's just the tide that's out. It looks like a kind of battlefield war zone, doesn't it? No, it's fine. So yes, in case you've been on another planet, a quick summary of what's happened. Owen Farrell, playing against Wales at the weekend, was given a yellow card on the field for a high tackle for Tane Basham, and then via the newly introduced TMO bunker, that was upgraded to a red card during the game, meaning that Owen Farrell would face a disciplinary hearing, which he did earlier this week, at which a Australian trio decided that yellow card was sufficient due to mitigation, which was the late change of direction of the Welsh player, meaning that Owen Farrell didn't have the time to have adjusted his body, and so yellow card was sufficient. And that caused a giant reaction online with players, ex-players, pundits, journalists, fans from all around the world, really uproar at the decision, not understanding how this could be. Mainly based on World Rugby's own tackle framework, which, well, clearly states that mitigation could not be applied because of Owen Farrell's body position, which was always high, as I said on the video yesterday. That is the facts so far, right? I don't think I've missed anything with that. Those are just the pure basic facts. So World Rugby want to appeal this decision and retry it. Those are the facts, much to discuss. Firstly, I did a whole video yesterday where one of the big thrusts of it was a lack of transparency. Where's the report? Why can't we see it? What's the problem with us seeing it? Now, with their statement today, World Rugby have released that report, finally. And you imagine a bit of pressure on all of this has meant, maybe we should let people read things, make up their own mind. Maybe we should let them fill in the gaps. And actually, because I said yesterday on the video, I am one of those nerds who does read whole reports. I have read the report, so you don't have to. And a couple of interesting things from it. The panel did have access to additional footage. They got spider cam footage, which we haven't seen. Be interesting to see that, actually, and that is a material difference. That they may have seen the change of direction from an angle which it may have looked more significant. That's relevant. And also, the panel did have access to Tane Basham's medical details, where they knew via the Welsh doctors that he had on Monday been cleared to play, recovered from his HIA protocol, and was available to play this weekend against South Africa. So they knew that before they made their decision. Those are two material factors which you can understand may have influenced their thinking. I mean, obviously, as I've already said, the World Rugby tackle law mitigation doesn't allow that mitigation to be applied because Owen Farrell was always high. And that's the basis for World Rugby's appeal on this decision, and likely the reason why the red card will be upheld and a ban implemented. And that will bring a very sorry saga to a very, very messy end. Those are the facts. Now for a bit of opinion and a couple of thoughts. Firstly, the system. Hate the system, not the player. I don't know whether heads should roll and whether that's too much of a complicated process, not just for this, but just generally. But there's got to be a massive shake-up in rugby. The systems by which our sport is governed is an absolute mess. Whether it's the inability to organise a global season, whether it's the way Tier 2 and Tier 3 nations are shut out of tournaments like the Six Nations, whether it's having a system which no one can understand. I mean, I've worked in rugby. I've got a podcast. I've got this channel. I live and breathe it, and I don't understand. As you'll see from the video yesterday, there's just so much I didn't know. How are we ever expecting to welcome in new fans to something so complicated and convoluted? Surely we can simplify things, and the same goes for the laws of the game as well. I think one of the big things that rugby has done in probably the last 5 or so years is every time there's a problem and people raise an eyebrow or kick off about a potential issue that happens in a game, they try and introduce a new law, a new variation, a new subsection to try and solve that one problem. And it's like putting your finger in holes in a boat with holes in it. You put your finger in one, you have to take it out of somewhere else, and water comes in from a different direction. It just does not work. This constant tinkering and changing has only served to cause more problems, make it murkier, and add to problems. Try and solve one problem, you create a new problem, and this has happened so many times. So I just wish there was we could have someone at the top of the game who would just grab the whole thing by the scruff of the neck for the good of everybody. So, second point, trial by social media. Now, again, to reiterate, we've got to the right outcome in an awful way. And probably the worst bit of all about this process has been the fact that World Rugby have acted after there was a massive social media backlash. And it was big. I've not really known anything quite like this. And that trial by social media, that is a can of worms I don't think we should have opened, and it's a Pandora's box that you can't close. And I'm not saying that World Rugby shouldn't have done what they did today. What I'm saying is they should have done it immediately. World Rugby will have got the report that we didn't see until today, before the decision was announced. They would have known the outcome before the decision was announced. Any reason for appealing the decision could have been done immediately and saved all of this. The fact that World Rugby appear, and I don't know whether this is the case, but does it look to you like they've just bowed to, well, I don't want to use the phrase the mob, that's not what I mean, that's just a phrase, I'm not literally saying like that. Because they appear to have bowed to pressure on social media and whatnot, I think that's dreadful of World Rugby to have done it that way. Because, well, the potential, again, I've just talked about you try and solve one problem, you cause more problems. How many more problems might World Rugby have caused for themselves down the line by sending the message that if you kick up enough fuss, we'll actually act? Again, to reiterate, right outcome has happened today. It's just the manner of how it's happened is dreadful. So World Rugby need to get a grip and could have been on this straight away. Next point, legal representation. There's been quite a lot of criticism aimed at England, RFU, having a good barrister, a lot of comments made about that at Owen Farrell for the same reason that Steve Borthwick, that he should have just banned Owen Farrell. England have done nothing wrong. The RFU have done nothing wrong. Owen Farrell has done nothing wrong after the tackle I'm talking about. And they've got every right to use a barrister who clearly is worth his money. He's done a very good job now and in the past. But the bigger issue is that this may be the reason why there's a perception that Tier 2, Tier 3 nations don't get treated as well. It's not bias or xenophobia or anything like that, as some people have accused it of. It's just that they don't have access to the same quality representation, and that's something we can think about. And the final point, Owen Farrell. I have met him, I've interviewed him, I've been around him a lot over the last 7 or 8 years as I've been working on English domestic rugby. A lot has been said about him. He's got a tackle deficiency. That's what I can say. He has got a technique issue, which he has been trying to solve, and he has not solved it, and it has cost him. That is what I will say about Owen Farrell. He has got a tackle deficiency. I'll also say he's a very private man, doesn't like the limelight, doesn't like media. He's very nervous, very shy, just generally. A tenacious competitor on a rugby field, brilliant rugby player, and an incredible bloke. I will just say that the personal attacks on him, some of the stuff that's said about him, and I know it's just comments online, isn't it? People on Twitter or people in comments on YouTube videos, you sometimes say things when you're on a keyboard that you don't really mean. It's just quite ironic. Quite often these people that say these things are the same people that talk about being kind online and stuff. But some of the personal stuff that's been said is uncalled for. He's got a tackle issue. He deserved a red card. He's going to get a red card. He's going to get a ban. But I actually feel a bit sorry for him because he's been caught up in the middle of a shambolic process by World Rugby. And so we should hate the system, not hate the man. You can respect the rugby player. You can dislike the rugby player. But you don't know him as a bloke. So the personal stuff is uncalled for. He's an awesome guy. He's got a tackling issue which is going to cost him. And one of the concerns I've got now is that having gone through all this, World Rugby can't apply any mitigation, and the ban might be significantly long. That he misses he gets dropped from a World Cup squad, which will be Had they just given a ban, 4 games, let's say, nobody would have batted an eyelid, and he would have been still England's captain with them at the World Cup. As it is, he's been in the middle of all this proper mess, and he might have to be given a ban that is longer than he would otherwise have been given, and that could cost him a place at the World Cup. Which, whatever you think about him as a player, just you can have a bit of compassion for anyone that's in that situation, and I do. And I'll finally just finish with a little fact, just to demonstrate that the perception of Owen Farrell is maybe a bit different from the reality. And you can say, oh, I'm biased, all the rest of it, and I do think he's amazing. I haven't hidden behind that. I'm not trying to pretend I don't, but I'm trying to be objective as well. And so here's some objective facts. Owen Farrell has received a yellow card every 3,001 minutes of rugby played. And Dan Biggar, another international fly half, has received a yellow card every 1,996 minutes of rugby played, which is about 30% higher than Owen Farrell for yellow cards. Red cards though, right? That's Owen Farrell's big problem, red card shots. Owen Farrell has received a red card every 18,008 minutes. And I think just that stat alone puts it in context. He has got a tackle deficiency, but this is not the giant problem which some people are saying. It doesn't happen all the time, as people say. This is an issue which rears its head very, very rarely. 18,008 minutes for 1 red card in Owen Farrell's career. Dan Biggar, about similar actually, just a slightly more often, 17,960 minutes. And for comparison, because Owen Farrell has played a lot of rugby at inside centre, Andre Esterhuizen has had a red card every 3,827 minutes that he's played. Significantly higher than Owen Farrell's record. So again, that's just to say the perception is sometimes different from the reality. Hate the system, you don't have to hate the man. And there we go. Hopefully, we'll be able to really get on with talking about some rugby, right? That's what I'd love to. And hopefully you'll be here with me on that journey as well on the channel. Hit subscribe, leave your comments.